Hey man, welcome back. Welcome back. If you did watch the first two episodes, thank you. Please subscribe. Well, not even gonna say please subscribe. If you really like the content, if you really like what this channel is on, you really love the podcast, subscribe, share, leave a like, comment, do what you have to do. I'm not pressed for like getting out there like that, but I just want to get feedback and see where I can go with this channel and how I can make it grow past where it is now and keep it growing for the foreseeable future. With that being said, this upload time that I set on the first episode, I'm going to change because last week I uploaded on Friday morning, I do believe. So I'll make just start doing it on Friday morning because it's a little easier for me because I have classes Thursday night and I can't come home at like 10 o'clock and do homework. I mean, not do a record because I got to do homework and everything. So I do apologize for the changes in effect this start as of last week. So Friday is going to be the new upload time. With that being said, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the podcast. This is, of course, Young Black Voices presented to you by me, the Black Lil Mac. On today's episode, well, this week's episode is going to be about racism specifically, and then this is going to be like a trend for like the next couple weeks. We're going to be talking about different racial issues, but specifically this week's topic of racism has to do with three main portions. First, what I'm gonna talk about is, can Black people be racist? Well, and also defining what racism truly is for people to get a better understanding of if it's possible for an African American to be racist or not, because it's a question that floats around a lot, and I just want to get it answered as quickly as possible for people to understand what it truly means. Secondly, we're going to talk about the racial effects of not incarceration, but the racism inside of the criminal justice system. This is a topic that is continuously brought up and just comes to new light with different situations and everything. So that's what the second thing we're going to be talking about. And lastly, we're going to be talking about the topic. I'm going to start talking about the topic we're going to talk about next week, which is um, what I'm talking about next week is racism in regards to other races. So that's really what I'm going to get into now. I understand that I can't judge my situation or compare my situation to that of other people in different race groups or ethnic groups, but I would at least try to get a better understanding of what they go through. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so first and foremost, as I explained I've explained it. As I explained in last week's episode at the end, what racism actually was. Racism, while it does include the words prejudice and discriminatory, it does not mean they're all the same thing. Now, racism is a prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. The belief that all members of a race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to other race or races. All right. So to give you like a broad spectrum of what that pretty much meant and what it actually means is, in a nutshell, saying like racism is pretty much you feeling like the color of your skin makes you inferior or superior to somebody in some way. That, in all honesty, does accumulate quite well in this type of environment that we live in. So, kind of give you a brief history of I would say, systemic racism that has stemmed from the United States. In 1800s, I want to say like 1869 or somewhere around that, 1868, 1869, slaves were brought to America. Well, what now is known as America, but it was just uncharted territory. They thought it was the West Indies. Was brought to America, not by Christopher Columbus, so don't get that twisted. But what he did enslaved people too, but that's a different topic for a different day. But they brought us to this land. They made us do everything for them. Um, and this is just kind of like a general overview because I know there was still like things that happened beforehand. It was them capturing the slaves, bending them, making them bend to their will, and a bunch of other things. But I'm just kind of giving a broad overview of it. So they bring us to this land. They, in essence, break us mentally. They break us spiritually, and they break us physically. Now, this doesn't all happen in a stretch of like 10 years. This happens over time. So, see, fast forward maybe 50 years from then, which is about what, 1919. So, in this instance, you have a a less likely, well, slavery's over at this point. Slavery ended in 1963, but Juneteenth night, just, we can talk about that later. But slavery, quote unquote, ends in 1963. Um, I mean, not 1963, 1863, when the Emancipation Proclamation was going into, did go into effect. Um, I'm going to fact check that really quickly, though. But I'm thinking it's 1863. No, it was 1865. No, I'm right. All right. So, the Emancipation Proclamation was uh, declared in 1963, didn't get ratified to 1965, but somewhere around the line, and like, I mean, 18, I'm saying 19, I'm thinking of 1919, but 1865 it was ratified, and then somewhere in like 1872 or 1868, like 3 4 years or even further behind that, that was when they were officially told that slavery ended. So over that stretch of, I mean, 17, what did I say, 18 earlier? 1769. So over a stretch of like 100 years or so, you have what would be known as like the triangle trade, the slave trade, and like a multitude of other different things, in which was used to not only separate black families, but to destroy the mentality and the spiritualness of the black people, the African people, uh, and just like a multitude of other different things that were instituted to do nothing but destroy an entire entire race of people. And then this is where, in this stretch of time, as slavery is going on, you have a doctor, and this doctor, who I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but I'm gonna probably get to it a little bit later. But this doctor makes this theory, or this chart. I'll say it's a chart at this point because it's really not even a theory. But it makes this chart, and it basically says, and he goes around like examining slave physique, the physique of the slaves. He's like, I think it's a European doctor or an American doctor. I can't remember which one. Not even a doctor, but a scientist. So he measures the skull of a slave, the nose of the slave, the skull and nose of a Native American, and then a whole slew of other races, and kind of compares it to the Europeans or the white person physique. And he came to the conclusion that Native Americans and Africans, well, Indians, as they called them, Indians and Africans, were were inferior to white people because of how their head was structured, how broad their shoulders were, and just overall inferior because of the color of their skin. In a nutshell, they put that into everybody's mind, and that's what it ran with. It's for like 100 years is what it ran with. I mean, even past that, these things that were set back in like the 1870s and even beforehand, just set in stone. Now, fast forward 50 years, 1919, slavery's over, Jim Crow was in effect. Jim Crow is quite literally slavery part two, but pretty much legal. at this point. Blacks still don't have the right to vote fully. They're being killed and astonishingly raped, being lynched, being castrated, being raped, being pretty much every form of horrendous act under the book. So it just didn't feel like slavery was truly over. It was just transformed and manipulated. So let's go fast forward another 50 years. Now it's 1969. We have come a long way, partially. The Second World War is over. The Civil Rights Act has been passed in 1964. I Have a Dream speech, and I want to say the same year or in 63, I think it was 63. President Kennedy is assassinated in 63, that same year. 68, Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated. So as we progressively move towards being treated as just human beings, we see that there's a lot of setbacks. So you still see that some white people, a good amount of white people, are still stuck in this mental place where they feel like their skin makes them superior to pretty much everybody because of the fact that they have a lighter skin, and it was just considered a sin in their book to have darker skin. So let's fast forward to 2018, and this is a long stretch. So through this whole stretch, we have the Cold War, we have the Vietnam War, and dot 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 dot. Insert major fuck up here. First black president, first orange president. But in that time frame, you see racism hasn't gone, it hasn't deceased. It just transformed itself. It's never going to be gone. Racism will never die because that is an energy. And as science says, you cannot create nor destroy energy. It's just an energy that will follow and adapt and transform until the end of time, point blank, period. Um, with the Charlottesville riots, with the constant police brutality towards young black men, and like there's a multitude of other different things. But so after all that, to break it down simply, racism in this juncture, as is used in American census, the census is systemic. It's embedded deep into the roots of this country, and it's something that would, and quite frankly, would never actually change because the laws and statutes change so much to benefit everybody else but black people. So it's not something that can just easily be changed. It's going to be something that's going to take longer than expected. With all that being said, there are certain people in the African American community who think that they are better than every other race because of just long standing, I want to say biases, but some truths. For example, the structure of the black person is built off the African gene. This said gene is said to be the strongest of any gene known to man, any genome known to man. This gene can be duplicated into any other race, whatever, no matter who it is. Like you could take a white man and a black woman, and the child will come out looking primarily black. Same if you do a black woman with the Asian man, or or X and Y, whatever it is. That's what it really is. Now that gene does make us superior in that way, but to kind of think like because kind of get it to a psychological standpoint, but to think that that makes us superior just based off that, or is just pretty much based off that notion alone, makes us no better than those who came before us and those who still to this day feel like their white skin makes them better than black people, anybody of color. So to say that to have the African gene and to possess melanin and to be black in essence makes you better than an Asian person, a white person, a Latino person, or an Indian person, or a Russian. That's pretty biased and it's pretty prejudiced, all in that same regard. Um, but does that make you racist? In my personal opinion, yes and no. I feel like racism is something that is taken to the extreme level because everybody, in some way, shape, or form, has some form of bias, prejudice, and discriminates heavily. Many examples of this coming from stereotypes. These stereotypes can be enforced or denied based on the quality of, pretty much based on the person or the group of people that it's presented to. These technically don't make you racist, and kind of vice versa. The stereotype doesn't, just because you enforce a stereotype does not make you not racist, I guess, if just for lack of better words. Um, the overall question here is, can black people be racist? My solid answer is maybe. And the only reason I say maybe is because it's pretty much a thin line between it. Just a really, really thin line that it kind of walks on because of the fact that the terms of racism as regard to American standards is heavily based on being systematic, being institutionalized, and kind of being able to manipulate and control everything. It's hard to say that a black man can be racist in America per se. Now, in other countries, that could be a different topic. I'm not 100% sure. I got to get more literate with this, but I don't 100% know if that's the case in other countries. But I know here in America, everything is just kind of centered on the systematic and the institutionalized variant of racism. Uh, so just to kind of close this off, maybe a black person could be racist. And I say maybe with the extreme notion that it's possible, but it's not likely. And I say that because like most black people to be honest, find themselves to find the black skin to be inferior to the whiter skin. And those are people that are quite physically and literally brainwashed and crazy. And then there's some who find the African skin to be superior. So it's a very fine, that's why I say it's like a very fine line that you walk between what is known as racism and what is known as pretty much, you know. So that ends that first topic. So for that second topic, what we're gonna do is talk about the criminal justice system in regards to black people. I know this is a topic that is brought up a lot. And I know people are, oh, I can just hear people that, oh, I'm tired of hearing this and all these statistics. No, this is something that really does need to be talked about. Now, the previous topic I didn't touch on quite enough, but this just kind of give you a broad overview of what I think and what it kind of boils down to. So, the criminal justice system in America has been skewed for so long. Go back to Jim Crow, where at certain times it was illegal for a black man to vote. It was illegal for a black man to walk, talk, or even be seen next to a white person or to a white person. And these are kind of not even, kind of like the start of it legally, legal implications of it. So kind of give you some backstory, not even backstory on it, but trying to kind of give you like some examples. So the minimum sentence, and this is kind of, I'm gonna just break down different crimes that, or usually what African Americans are arrested for. So robbery, and some states like New York, it includes robbery includes up to like 15 years of jail time. In California, armed robbery is like 2 to 5 years in prison. And it's like a three strike laws in some states. Others is a little bit more lenient. Some is like 6 to 30 years. Others is like 15 is the max. It's really weird per state. Now, with all that being said, it still doesn't factor in. some type of racist bias, and you can kind of see it in certain instances. Whereas you can have a white man who is arrested for the same thing as a black man, and you see him get less time than the black man. So you see the white man get less time than the black man. Say two people, black and white, arrested for aggravated robbery. Granted, this is a mandatory prison sentence. It's considered a Class X felony, by the way, and it carries a mandatory prison sentence of like 6 to 30 years if you're convicted. In this case, the white man would probably lie his way or weasel his way out, or not even do all that. Just they will believe him more than they believe the black man, and he would get like maybe 6, maybe even lower years. Maybe I'll say that his max would probably be like 10 years in opinion. As far as this black man, he would not even get the 6 minimum. His minimum would just end up being like 10 years, while his maximum was being like 30 to life. Now, is that completely fair? And I've always asked myself this question, and I always ask this question: is that completely fair to be judged by the color of your skin so horribly, to think that this is what it pretty much boils down to? And no matter what people try to say, no matter what people try to convince me of, everything in this country boils down to the color of your skin. It doesn't matter if you're the lightest of light or the darkest of dark. It boils down to the color of your skin. Just being black is enough to receive so much hatred, not even in this country, but all over the world. Just to receive so much hatred for the color of your skin, and it absolutely makes no sense. And it's something that is, again, deeply rooted in the foundation of America, and it's pretty much the reason why this world is as striving as it is on the backs of African Americans or African people. All right. So the second one is drug possession in certain states, right? In certain states, you can be fined up to $20,000, or you get like a first time. If you're a first time offender, you get like 2 to 10 years. Granted, the 2 to 10 years is kind of like first time offenders for everybody, but it's more so lenient in the ways of pretty much the color of your skin. As I said, uh, I don't need to bring it up 100% of the time, because it just should be a known fact. The fact of the matter, the fact of the matter is that simply being black is enough to convict a man of anything, whether it's sexual assault, whether it's rape, whether it's drug possession, aggravated assault, murder, manslaughter, armed robbery, you name it. Just insert black man or black woman, and they automatically go to jail for as long as they could possibly put them away for, or sometimes even worse. All right, so I'm going to do break down a little bit more of like incarceration trends in America, and this my other two sources was just my other two sources for the robbery was the Legal Defender, SPC.com, and criminal-findlaw.com. This next one coming from straight from the NAACP Criminal Justice Fact Sheet. Now, the trend for incarceration in America between 1980 and 2015 pretty much increased from 500,000 to over 2.2 million. Today in the United States, Today, the United States makes up 5% of the world's population and has 21% of the world's prisoners. One in every 37 adults in the United States, or 2.7% of American population, is under some form of correctional supervision. That is really a lot to go from, in 1980, having roughly around like 500,000 people incarcerated in America, jumping from 500,000 to 2.2 million in a short span of what it seems. Let's see, that's 20 years, is 2000, 35 years, 35 years. And it's pretty much a whopping almost 2 times more than when in 1980. Um, that is pretty much incredible. So I'm going to break it down into where these kind of numbers come from. So in 2014, African Americans constituted 2.3 million, or 34% of the total 6.8 million correctional population. African Americans are incarcerated 5 times the rate of whites. The imprisonment rate of African American women is twice that of white women. Nationwide, African American children represent 32% of children who are arrested, 42% of children who are detained, and 52% of children whose cases are judicially waived to criminal court. Though African Americans and Hispanics make up 32%, approximately 32% of the United States population, they comprise 56% of all incarcerated people in 2015. If African Americans and Hispanics were incarcerated at the same rates as white prisoners, the jail population would decline by almost 40%. So let me kind of break this down for you, because that was a lot of information to spitfire at you at one time. All right, 2014. That is like 5 years ago. So in 2014, 5 years prior to me making this video, well, making this podcast episode, African Americans only had about 2.3 million, or 34% of the already existing 6.8 million correctional population. Pretty much that, in a nutshell, is like dangerously close to being a third, or I mean, in all honesty, it's a little bit over a third of the population that is incarcerated in a correctional setting, and it just needs correctional supervision. And that's in 2014, and I'm pretty sure the number has gone up since then. That was 5 years ago. Just imagine what the number is right now. The fact is that, into the next point, and this is where the number realistically comes from, is the African Americans are incarcerated 5 times the rate of whites. And it's, again, going back to the color of your skin. Like, no matter what you do as a black man or a black woman, you will always be harassed. You will always be arrested. You will always be killed just off the premise of you're black. I don't want you to be black in America. That's really what it boils down to. I don't want you to be black in America. That's it. That's it. They say it in so many words. They say it all around, and they just don't want to admit it. But that's what it boils down to. No matter how many times you try to defend a officer for doing his job, quote unquote, no matter how many times you try to defend a racist white man or woman who spits on, hits, abuses, verbally assaults, rapes, or whatever the case may be to a black person, it always boils down to the common fact that the color of our skin dictates the treatment that we get in this country. Point blank, period. Don't try to tell me anything else. When you have trends like this, you don't have the right to say that it's not because you're black. It's because you did something wrong. No, it's clearly because I'm black. Because in all instances, in the past, I want to even say 5 years, in the past 3 years, have all the deaths by policemen has been because you were black. Trayvon Martin, I want to say 2013, 2014, I do believe. I know that's past the 3 year mark. 2014, 2013, killed while walking down the street back to where he was residing. Michael Brown, killed middle of the street off of pretty much an altercation. Fidel Castillo, I can't pronounce that man's name. Sorry for botching it. Shot after telling a cop that he had a gun in the car, a registered gun at that, in the car, and that was it. It wasn't because he had a gun. And the common misconception is that the cop feared for his life. How do you fear for your life over someone who is not entertaining your existence? at that given time, but you fear for your life, but not because of the simple fact that he's intimidating, not for the simple fact that he's bigger than you, not for the simple fact that he may, in all honesty, be superior in your mind, clearly, but for the pure fact that the color of his skin is of a darker hue than yours. Insert a white man into any of these situations, and the outcome would have been differently. You see it all the time. You can insert a white man into any situation that a black person goes through, and the situation is different, and the outcome is different every single time. If a white man were to get pulled over and say that he has a gun in his car, fully loaded, probably like assault rifle or a Uzi or a Mac, whatever the case may be, whatever kind of gun it is, he would go off scot free, even if he started busting shots at the cop. The cop would be more in tune to not shoot this man, but to detain him in any physical way than to do the same with a African American man. They are trained to just shoot anybody who is of a darker hue based off the bias of them being a darker hue. They're automatically seen as more dangerous, as a threat to society or to the system that is itself, that they just, that's it. The imprisonment rate of African American women is twice that of white women. That should be self-explanatory. Again, it boils down to the color of your skin. Black women are often seen as hostile. They're seen as attitude-driven, emotional creatures that pose a threat to society. Crazy, right? They pose a threat to society, yet they are quite literally thought to be like the most submissive creature. I mean, not even say creature, but they, I don't even mean to say that, but that's just how some people view black women as. They view them to be more submissive than white people, because white women, and it's strictly because white women aren't, no, I can't make up something for this one, but it's just some people just think of them as this. And really, realistically, the stigma for black women really has to stop. Black women are not irritating. Black women are not aggravated all the time. Black women are not upset, mad. Just stop. Stop the hate towards black women. Stop believing them to be fragile creatures who are easily manipulated, and just stop it. It's not okay. It's quite literally the most disgusting thing you could probably ever think of a human being. I know you could think of it towards white women as well, but when you see that the imprisonment rate of African American women is twice that of white women, I don't want to hear the fact that it's like not a race thing. All right. So 32% of our children, of our African children, uh, is are arrested. I'm gonna say are arrested. 42 of them are detained. 42% of them are detained. 52% of them automatically get their cases pushed to the criminal court. Why do you think that is? If you haven't been listening this whole time, the reason that it is because they're black children. They fear, like from like elementary school, the whole the system just starts there. They see how you are as a child, and then they just give you a number, give you your prisoner number already. They just label you by your prison number at the right young age of like 3 to 4, and maybe even lower, or maybe even higher, maybe 9 or 10. 9 or 10 is what they officially give you. Ooh, man. Officially give you your prison number. Apologies. Officially give you your prison number, while at 3 to 4 they kind of they test you out. They kind of see where you're gonna go from there. All right, so I'm not even gonna explain the rest. 32% of African Americans, Hispanics make up the U.S. population, but yet 56% incarcerated in 2015. So, well, right, cool. So let's just skip ahead, just talk about the effects. Because to keep reiterating myself, based off, just to say, based off the facts that you're black. That's it. And that's really what it all boils down to. No matter what you try to argue me with, the fact still remains that being black in America is considered to be the most abrupt sin ever to hit anything, to hit any type of stream. To be black in America is worse than being a pedophile in America. It's worse than being a rapist in America, a domestic abuser in America, to be a drug lord in America. All that does not matter if you are white. It only matters if you are black in America. You can be shot off the color of your skin and just based off of that. And I'm not going to excuse the fact that our black brothers and sisters often kill our other black brothers and sisters just off the bias of some stupid ass beef that they've had with them for a long time. Or you said something about my girl, you stepped on my shoes, and a bunch of other dumb shit like that. I'm not excusing it. I'm not gonna like. I'm not excluding that from this entire conversation. But what really needs to be highlighted is the mistreatment of African Americans by everyone, just not by specific people, just not by white people, just not by like Indian people or Asians. Excuse me, but by everyone, including black people. It should never have come to. It should never come to a place or time in America to where everything that is done is just because you're black, and that black people turn on other black people just off the bias of something. Just it don't even have to be anything substantial. It could just be my skin is lighter than yours, so fuck you. It's your skin is darker than mine. My fuck you. You had a baby with a white man. Fuck you. You had a baby with a black man. Fuck you. Like it's every possible outcome quite literally leads to just because you're black. There's always going to be a divide in black people until we come together and figure out and kind of mm, get out of our heads and just get everything to be one thing. Like just don't sit here and tell me that everything is fine or that the only person we have to worry about is the white man or other races when clearly in our own race we have what is considered like the most, for me anyway, was considered the most dumb form of prejudice that there is the fact that because I have more than you or I look better than you or I do things better than you, that I'm better than you. Thus, I need to stay and remain humble, or not even humble, but to stay and remain whoever or whatever the fuck that I'm doing. Um, Realistically, the only thing we really like just need to stop with all the hatred towards black men and women, because most of this comes from just the kind of stems from black men and black women. Like black women need to stop hating on other black women because they have certain set of hair or they get the most attention. That should not matter. Like don't hate your people because of what they do. Because then inadvertently you hate yourself. Because they are doing the same thing that you could possibly be doing, but they're doing it in a slightly different way and it's attracting more people. Don't hate them because you're not doing what you should be doing to make people notice you. And you shouldn't even want people to notice you for anything. If people are going to notice you, they're going to notice you for whatever you do as a person, not because of what you have done for them or what you can do for them or what you will do for them. It should be based off the principle of what I do for myself and who I am as a person. Jeez, man. All right, so that concludes like that portion of it. I hope you enjoyed it. I just kind of went on a rant. I was kind of fishing for information. I kind of dropped the ball a little bit, just a smidget, but I did pick it back up. I do apologize. It's like 7 in the morning. I just woke up ready and willing to talk about this. Before I get to the last, well, let me talk about the last thing. I'm gonna get to just some channel updates. Next week we will be talking about a more. We're gonna give like a more in depth look of racism in America and just kind of get some. Well, I don't want to like keep racism just being like a constant theme, but it's going to be a constant thing. So we're going to do a lot more of an in-depth research on next week's episode. I'm going to try to get a couple guests on here. I know I've been saying that for like the past 2 weeks, but I'm trying to get a couple guests on here. Everybody's like, ooh, like really, really busy, and I feel like they just don't want to take that leap of faith because they feel like because they have many white friends and they just don't want to talk about these certain topics because they don't want to offend their white friends. And I think that's what we're gonna kind of dive into next episode is can you be pro-black while hanging out with white people? And then kind of getting into the definition of what pro-black really is. Uh, but that'll probably be like the second half of the show. The first half would just be kind of discussing racism in an entirety and kind of giving like a broad history of what racism has done, what it will do, and how it has come far from what it was. Just a few quick updates. New upload time and date is going to be Friday. I don't know what time on Friday. It's probably be in the morning time. Frankly, I'm not unsure of it. It'll probably be in the morning time. If I can get it rasterized by like the night before, I will upload it either that night or like the Friday morning, or I'll upload it Friday night, Friday evening, probably like around 7:30 ish. Just kind of give you like a broad overview of it. That's one. Two, I'm gonna be up in my graphic portion of my videos. The logo that I have, I'm gonna redo because I kind of just lazily did it at first because I wasn't sure if I was gonna go through with this, and then it was kind of like my fault. But I'm gonna try to get better with the production of it and include in the video itself just kind of like not even clips, just something there to kind of give you an indication of where to kind of go for to kind of like annotations, almost annotation to show you what point of the video where you can go to if you want to skip the intro, you want to skip the outro, and just kind of get straight to the nitty gritty of it and get to where I'm talking about the serious topics here. I'm going to include that in this week's and pretty much every video from now on. Um, I'm gonna try to get a couple people on here for next week's episode, specifically because next week I'm gonna do a double upload, and I may do a double upload this week just to kind of do like a little bit like of a new section or maybe like a new just kind of test out a couple things and see what is liked, what is disliked, and people who are like dislike and everything else. Just kind of I'm testing the waters this week. That's what I'm gonna do. Test the waters. But with that being said, I'm out of here. I got to get ready to go to work, go to school, come back, do all my editing and everything. So, if you have not already, like, comment, subscribe, share, criticize, whatever the case may be, because I take all form of criticism into the content. If you're not liking the content, tell me. If you like the content, tell me. Whatever it may be, just tell me because I really want to hear feedback on this. And the only way that I can get better is to get feedback from everything from anybody who has subscribed and listened to it constantly. So with that being said, also uh, from now on, since I already have this is gonna be my third episode, we're starting episode 4. I'm going to start uploading a small snippet of it to um, YouTube, and then the rest will probably go to either iTunes, podcast, iTunes podcast, like Chromecast or whatever you talk about, whatever that is. The Google has for it, um, and probably like Spotify. So I'm gonna just upload it to like actual podcasting sites versus uploading the full thing for YouTube. I don't know how podcasting sites go, but I'm gonna just do my research on that, and I'm just gonna go from there. Um, that's pretty much it for this week's episode. As always, peace, love, occasionally chicken grease, because I know that everybody's eat chicken. Peace, love, chicken grease, and always focus on good vibes and cheese fries. Peace.